Well, hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us today. I've been really looking forward to this webinar with a superstar in sales training, Nicky Miklos-Woodley. More about Nicky in a moment. If you're new to Paradox and you don't know me yet, I'm MC Carter, founder and CEO of Practice Paradox, or more often known just as Paradox in short. I'm actually I've got quite an unusual background today in that I'm sitting in an Airbnb in the Mission District in San Francisco, having just attended in San Jose over the past few days, the QuickBooks Connect conference, which was an eye-opener on many levels and met some incredible people. Thoroughly impressed with that. So that's why I've got the background there, just in case you're wondering. Modern selling skills for accountants and advisors is today's topic. And g'day, Darren. In chat there, and guys, feel free to use chat as we go today. It is my privilege to introduce Nicky today because with what we do at Paradox, as you know, we are inch wide, mile deep. So inch wide in focus and mile deep in our expertise around digital marketing for progressive accounting and advisory firms. So what we're about is focusing on generating inbound leads that come to you of very specific types of prospective clients. But you can bring the horse to water, but you can't make them drink, or can you? Clearly, you need to convert those leads. And we practice what we preach in that we say to you, in your firm, don't try to be all things to all people. You know, there's never been a hall of fame built to generalists, and to focus on your core and have trusted partners with other areas. So that's exactly what we do. And Nicky speaks at our masterclasses. She trains Paradox members around the world on sales training remotely using Zoom, etc., and is achieving remarkable results with our clients. So you're in for a treat. So without any further ado or intro, g'day, Nicky. How are you?
Hello, MC. Good morning and good afternoon to everybody out there as well, depending on where you are in the world, as it is.
And to fill everyone in, you're sitting right now in Brisbane?
I'm certainly in Brisbane, yes. I'm overlooking the beautiful sky here. We've got the pool. It's like very tempting to get out there and enjoy the day. But to be honest, there is nowhere else that I would rather be than right here, hanging out with you and your wonderful members, and of course, talking the world of sales and how to grow the business, grow the firm.
Well, I'm going to get out of your way and I'll be back later for Q&A. So guys, use that chat. We'll come back to the questions, but over to you, Nicky.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, MC. And again, welcome to everybody here that is joining us. As MC said, please feel free to use the chat, ask any questions, share some comments. In true Paradox and Evergreen style, we want this to be as interactive and value-driven as possible. So we will have some polls, we're going to have some interactions throughout. And of course, the goal for today is really to take you through how the power of effective questioning can absolutely help move your business, move your firm forward, and really connect with the right types of clients. There's been so many conversations that we've had around not just taking on work and not just working with any type of client. It's really important that you're actually connecting with and working with the right type of client as well. So that's a key focus when we're looking at effective questioning. And we're going to get even broader than that. So the key areas that we'll have a look at today is making sure that you're having a conversation with purpose. We are in this modern world of busy. It's the busy trap, as I like to call it. But your time is precious. Your client's time is precious. So we've got to make sure that the conversations that you're having are conversations with purpose. We also need to make sure that you're looking at how do you show your client the value in what you offer. Because if people don't see value, then it doesn't matter what you're offering, they're not going to buy into that. So we'll look at how you can do that. We're also going to give you ways, or I'll give you some different ways and techniques to ensure that you're not interrogating your clients, because sometimes people will say to me, look, Nicky, there's so many questions that I need to ask you to uncover the need. How do I do that in a way that it doesn't feel like an interview or an interrogation? So I've got a couple of cool ways I'm going to share with you that you can make sure that you're not interrogating your clients, but rather you're creating that connection, and through that, they're seeing the value in what you can offer as well. Now, finally, I've got a couple of really great questions that you can use to get your clients selling themselves. I can see there's some comments coming through, and we've got people from all over the country, from South Australia, Brizzy, Melbourne, Canberra, and I would love to hear from you. If you could pop in the chat, would it be wonderful? What would it mean to you if you could get your clients selling themselves? What impact would that have, and how would that feel? So pop in the comments. Let's see. Really, this is what we want to start with the end in mind, and having a look at, you know, by asking questions and adding value, creating that connection and getting your clients to sell themselves. Wouldn't that be a great place to be? We've got a few people from Brizzy. We've also got Matthew from Jindy. Welcome. Okay, so whilst those comments are coming through, I'm going to continue with just really looking at the first poll as well. So actually, I'll give you a couple of moments to share with me, what will it mean to you if you could get your clients selling themselves? Hopefully the snow has, yeah, it's a little bit different weather in Jindabyne, that's for sure, to hear. Pete and Brent from Rocky, great to see you here, gentlemen. Wonderful. Canada, fantastic to have you here. Excellent. So we've got some comments coming through. It would, Larissa, it would make your job easier, wouldn't it just? And wouldn't it feel really good as well? So not only is it going to take some of the pressure off, it's going to feel great because your clients will be so on board with what it is that you're doing. They will be, you know, the champion of that, which is what we want. Emily, it would be amazing to have more clients come to us and selling themselves. We wouldn't have to look for leads. So, you know, Emily, what this really comes down to, and I love what MC said in the opening around, you can do all this work around the inbound marketing, which is critical. So you still have to go out there and drive those leads to you. And what Paradox is really great at is the best practice techniques to get those leads coming to you. And then when you're having those conversations through these effective questioning techniques, when you're sitting there with the client, whether it's an online video or face-to-face, you know, through really subtle questions that you can ask or simple questions that you can ask, you're actually turning it around and they're telling you the reasons as to why you're the right firm for them or why now is the right time to get started as well. Fantastic. Now, I'd love for you to jump on. I'm going to start a poll here. So I really would love everybody's interaction here. We've already got, oh, you guys have started. You're way ahead of me.
you know what, Nikki? I think our webinar co-pilot, Brad, has been incredibly efficient. So as you've been talking, people have already been voting. So yeah, have a look at that on the polls tab.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, MC, and thank you, Brad, always working your magic in the background there. So I can see we've got some great responses, and just to talk you through what we're looking at here is, what do you see as your weakest link in your current sales process? And a lot of the times, as we can see, the front runners are not having a clear process in place or not having those leads to sell to. Now, when those leads come in, we have to have the most effective conversations that we possibly can with them, because we know how hard it can be to get quality leads coming in. Now, once you've got those leads, and this is directly linked to the sales skills of the team, you've got to know what to do with them and then build on the skills of the team as well. So we've got sales skills of the team is another gap that I see. Another is the sale. So I would say, I'm just going to give you a couple more minutes. I know the poll's been up. So if you haven't, I'm waiting on a few more people to answer. So if you can jump on and quickly put in your poll, what is your weakest link? Is it not having a clear sales process? Is it the skill set of your team to adapt to that sales process? Is it not having enough leads to sell or being clear on what the packages and the solutions are? Or sometimes that barrier is actually being able to close the sale. So a couple more votes to come, and I think we'll be at around the 80% mark and we can close this down. Isn't that interesting? So the front runners, we've got not having the clear process or enough leads to sell, being too tired, and yeah, not being able to close the sale. Now, interestingly, we're talking about effective questioning today, as you know, and effective questioning is a part of all of these key areas. Effective questioning is overlaid in every area of the sales process. And whilst we're not going through the sales process specifically today, what I am going to share with you is what part of the process effective questioning is really key and critical for. And if you are curious to know, well, what is best practice sales process, there'll be an opportunity for you to book in some time for me to have a chat and take you through that, because this is something that has been designed with MC, and I've been collaborating and working on what is best practice specifically for your firm, your business, and combining that with best practice sales as well. So if you're really not clear on what that is, it's very important that you do get clarity around that. Effective questioning is a part of sales skills of the team, of course, and you can use questioning techniques not only in the conversations with clients, but we're also going to talk about how else you can utilize that as well. Okay, so we might close the poll there now. Brad, if you could work your magic in the background, that's great. And if we continue to have a look, the first thing I promised that we were going to talk about today is really understanding and having a look at having a conversation with purpose. And the goal here is really understanding, well, why ask questions? Why take the time? Because to be honest, it can be quicker and easier not to ask questions. I'm sure that some people will agree with me. Not only that, it's more comfortable not to ask questions. So why take the time and effort to invest in learning about this? And for some people, it is getting you out of your comfort zone to ask that extra question or uncover that extra need. And the crux of this is that, of course, effective questioning is all about having a conversation with purpose. It's all about uncovering either a need that you're helping to fulfill or a desire that you're helping to fulfill, or it's uncovering a problem that you can help solve. Now, we talk a lot about not letting our own beliefs and definition of things get in the way. So I know that even terming something a problem you're helping to solve will push some people's buttons. But the reality is you're out there helping businesses, or if you're working with businesses or people, you are absolutely helping solve a very important problem for them. And, you know, perhaps if the core problems are solved, you can look at it from the perspective of perhaps it's setting them up for the future so they don't have to worry about finances and wealth, or, you know, what is that desire that you're helping to fulfill. Now, you can have a conversation with somebody, but if you don't understand the strategy and the structure of effective questioning behind it, it can be a conversation that leads to nowhere. And that's going to depend on your personality or behavioral style. And if you've done some work with MC and I in the past, you know what I'm talking there around the different types of communication and behavioral types as well. So for some people, you might have a question that is so purpose-driven, but you miss the connection part. Or for other people, you might not want to actually ask for the business at the end or close the sale, excuse me, or get the client on board with you. So you're having a conversation that's not purpose-driven at all. The other key thing, the important thing here that I want to share is by having a conversation with purpose, which all that means is having a structure and a strategy behind the questions that you ask, you are in fact building credibility and authority as the leader in your industry. Because too many people out there will rush a sale. They don't take the time to uncover the problem or the need or the desire that you're helping to solve or fulfill. So whilst it might take a little bit more time initially, but if you've got the right process in place, you'll actually save time in the end. Or perhaps it's out of your comfort zone a little bit. It's worth expanding beyond that because the results that you'll get will absolutely be accelerated. So yes, it's worth investing a bit of time up front, or it's worth upskilling the team, or it's worth getting clear on why, how that fits into the process. It will build your credibility. It builds the trust with the client. And you've heard both MC and I say many times that realistically what you're wanting to do is build, people will buy from you when they know you, trust you, like you. So you need to build that likability, that trust, and get to know people. And what better way to do that than with effective questioning, which again is that conversation with purpose. So another key thing here is that it's all about perceived value. A lot of people who are looking at selling services believe that it's sometimes about price. So people will say no, potential clients or clients will say no if they think it's too expensive or if the price is too high. It's actually never about price, it's about value. If they see value in something, they will absolutely invest in it. And you have to look at what you're offering as an investment. So it's not a cost, it's not spend, it's an investment. If somebody invests with you, they will get a return. And they'll either get a return in revenue in helping manage their cash flow and grow their business, or sometimes it's an emotional return as well. I mean, a lot of you are about helping your clients get to wealth creation. I mean, that's a massive emotional and financial return on investment, isn't it? So you've really got to look at this from the point of view that you're not selling, you're not commodity sales, you're value sales. You are selling a service that's all about value and investment. And remember that if somebody sees value, they will invest in you. And if they don't, they won't. So I've got a couple of ways and a couple of cool tips and techniques that you can use straight away that you can start embedding for yourself, your conversations with clients, and you can share this with your team to help make sure that your client can see the value in what you're offering. You know, I talk to a lot of people, and when I ask the question around, is the most important thing that you see value in what you're offering? And a lot of people say, yes, absolutely, I need to see value in what I'm selling. And I agree that's very, very important, but I would say that it's not the most important thing, because the most important thing is that your client sees the value. And a very close second to that is that you see the value, because of course that's going to make it easier for you to offer that solution and provide that solution and that service. But we've got to find ways to get the client to see that value. And they're not necessarily going to see value just because you tell them about it or because you think it's great. So the first, and if you've got a pen and paper, I want you to write this down. I'm happy to share a visual with this as well. So just pop in a comment and let me know if you want some visuals here. But draw this out, write this out so that it embeds it in your mind as well. And the first thing we must do is uncover the current reality. What is the current reality of that particular potential client that you're talking to? Where is their business at the moment? Where is their finances at the moment? Is it all over the place? Is it stressful? What impact is that having? So find out the current reality of that client's world right now. You then need to uncover, well, what is their future ideal? If it wasn't like this, where would it be? What would they want it to be like? And by doing that, you can actually see a comparison. So what I find is that people are either really good at uncovering the current reality, what's happening at the moment, or they're really good at uncovering what their future goals want to be like. You know, what they want in the future, what their future goals are. Where do you want the business to be in 6 months? How financially stable do you want to be in the next 3 years? But what's missing is the link between the two. I'm getting very passionate with my hand movements here. Because can you see that when you have both, there's a contrast? And it's in the contrast that creates the gap. The gap is your opportunity to provide a solution. And I really want you to hear me when I say the bigger the gap, the more value they place on the solution. So your job when you're doing, and if it's an inbound inquiry, inbound coming lead, and there's the initial needs analysis, so that's when the person who's answering the phone, they ask some initial questions to get an understanding, is it the right fit? Next, you send a gap analysis, so a survey of some form, and you're asking lots of questions, and then you've got the live scoping meeting where you're face-to-face and offering a solution. Through those 3 steps, you are uncovering the current reality and the future ideal, so that when you sit down in a live scoping meeting, you can see, wow, okay, here's the gap, here's how we can help you, and this is the value and why and how we can help you. So I hope that this is landing. I'm just going to do a quick check of questions. So if you've got any questions or comments, please pop them in as well. Again, we want this to be as interactive as possible. So really making sure in every step you're uncovering the current, future, and the gap. And that's where the power is. And what I love to do is share simple strategies or structures that you can think about. So now what you can do, an action item from here, is to go back and have a look at your sales process, have a look at the types of questions that you're asking, and make sure, do I have current reality questions? What's happening in the business, or what's happening for you at the moment? And the future ideal, to then identify the gap. Now, if you want to take this to the next level, there is a way to do that, because again, remember, this little structure, this 3-step process is here to help you really show your clients the value of how you can help them. And I also would say here, if there's no gap, don't sell to them. Find a different way that you can help them. And an example of that could be, if you are asking, so talk to me about your current transparency over your reporting monthly. What's happening at the moment. And they say, yep, we get a monthly report, it's automatically generated, so we get to see these key numbers in the business. And you might ask a question that's, well, is there any way that you would want your reporting to work better for you? And they say, no, actually, I'm pretty happy. I get everything I need. So how big is the gap there? There's no gap, because they're happy. Their current reality is as they want it to be in future. So you wouldn't then sell them a service based on further transparency of reporting, unless you ask specific questions to uncover, actually, there's something else that we can add there to make it even better. Or maybe that's where you start asking questions about other areas of the business. What else is working and not working as well for them. So you can then provide a solution based on not the reporting, but the other area that actually there is a need from. So I hope what's really resonating and landing here is, don't sell before you've identified the gap, and make sure you're asking questions that are based both on what's happening at the moment and where the business wants to be, or the individual wants to be, depending on your firm. Now, I said that you can take this to another level, and the way that you do that is you can ask a future reality or a future consequence question. And essentially what that means is you've uncovered the current reality. You've uncovered where they want to be in 6 months. You then ask a question, and feel free to write this down, which is, what happens if you don't, and then you insert the goal that they wanted to achieve in future reality. What happens, so let's say it's all about cash flow management, and you've identified there's a gap. So you could ask a question, so what's going to happen in 6 months if we don't get these cash flow issues sorted for you? And ask them the question. And then the other big thing is, don't answer it for them, one question at a time, and give them the time to answer. Can you hear how powerful that question can be? It's very much a, whoa, okay, actually, there's a consequence here. And it's going to hurt my business, or it's going to hurt my family's future. And therefore, there's urgency, there's motivation to take action. Because as we know, we don't want to become proposal chasers. And a proposal chaser is when a client or potential client says, yeah, it sounds great, I love it, it looks wonderful, I'm really happy to go ahead, I'll come back to you. And then all of a sudden that you can't get a hold of them, they've disappeared, they've gone. You don't want that to happen. So any little techniques or pointy questions that you can ask, that's really going to help you drive that urgency, which is the 4th emotional state of a sale. We might cover that off in another webinar in the new year. And urgency is really important. We need to be motivated to take action. So that's the 4-point system: current reality, future ideal, identify what that gap is and make sure it's big enough to provide to show the value, and ask the future reality question. And if I go through anything at any point you feel like, oh, I'm not sure, that makes me a bit uncomfortable, or you feel resistant to a type of question that I ask, you must have a look at that, because what could be sitting behind that is your own either belief or meaning or definition that you're giving to something that could actually end up stopping you move your business forward. When you're in the world of selling and sales, which we all are. And in fact, even if we're not in business, we are in the world of selling, because we are always selling an idea, always selling a solution. There's an interaction for money, but sometimes there's not. We need to get buy-in. For those of you who have a team, you are always selling an idea. So if you do find that there's, oh, something doesn't sit right, take a note of that, because that could be something worthwhile for you exploring. When you're in the world of sales, we need to work through our limiting beliefs or unresourceful definitions around things like the word sales or selling or influencing, etc., so that we can put it to the side and be 100% there for our clients, there for our prospects as well. At the end of the day, if you don't ask these pointy questions, or if you don't offer the additional services that you can, really you're doing your clients a disservice. Think about how much more you could be helping them. What are you holding your firm back from in terms of helping your clients even more? And the way that you can uncover that is when you do get that, you'll know what that is for you. It's like, oh, no, I wouldn't ask that question. No, that's a bit too direct. Some of you might be thinking that. Okay. Again, if you've got any questions, please jump them out, pop them out, and we'll have a look at them as well. Now, another thing I want to share in terms of helping your clients see the value of what you're offering is the question funnel. And basically what you're looking at here is a funnel. And at the top, we talk about open questions. So when you ask really open questions, it's much easier to answer. It's non-committal and it's not threatening for the person that you're talking to. I'll give you a really easy example. The INA, the initial needs analysis, which is the phone call that I talked about earlier. Having your client services coordinator or receptionist or administrator or whoever is that first point of contact on the phone, having them ask a few questions if somebody's looking to make an appointment with an accountant or an advisor within the firm. You want to make sure some of those questions are quite open, because at that point, it's the beginning of the conversation. And if you go in too pointy or too direct, the rapport might not be there yet for them to feel comfortable answering. So for example, really open, easy questions are, tell me about your business. What industry are you in? What prompted you to give us a call? These are very easy, very non-threatening answers. And we've got a downloadable for you if you would like a copy of that for joining us live today. And it's a cheat sheet of some INA, initial needs analysis questions. Now there's quite a few on there. I think there's about 8 to 10 questions on there. And you might pick your favorite 5 and, practice, rehearse, see what suits you or see what suits the person that's answering the phone, and look at what's the most important information for you to gather from your prospects or your potential clients. So can you see the very easy open questions? If you went straight into ask a question about profit and loss, they might not be as open to answer it, because they're just making an initial inquiry. So the top of the funnel are very open, very easy questions. Now, as you go through, and I'll stay focused on the INA process, there's also, of course, the Future Focused Advisory meeting, the FAM meeting as well, which there's a similar process, yet it's tweaked a little bit, because of course that's for your existing clients and looking at how can you help them on top of what you're doing through your client share matrix. But for the purpose of today, let's just focus on the INA, which then leads to the gap analysis and the live scoping meeting. Now, with the gap analysis, you're starting to ask some more pointy questions. You're starting to probe. You're asking more questions around profit and loss or revenue for the year. You're asking questions around future goals and where do they want to be. And, sometimes it might even be ideal life scenarios. So you're starting to get more information. And another good example is what you can do is, as we transition this to your live scoping meeting, so that's the face-to-face component, you then can probe from the answers that they've given you. So again, a really easy example could be, what current software, accounting software are you using? It's a pretty open, easy question. And then you could ask another question of that, which is, what's working well for you, or how comfortable are you using the software, or what challenges have you? Any. So you're asking a question from the answer that they've given you. When you're asking in the gap analysis their results or their financial situation at the moment, then in the live scoping meeting, you're probing further. You can ask more questions that are more detailed and, like I say, pointy, because you've already built the rapport and you've had 2 touch points already. This is your 3rd touch points. And if you've got clients that are, or prospects that are quite analytical, if they sit in the grinder component of the 4 behavioral styles, for those of you who are familiar with that, they need 3 touch points to really come to the party with certain things. So that's another reason why the 7 steps to sales mastery is just so, it's sort of everything, if you like. So when you're in the live scoping meeting, you're probing even further. And this is where you can overlay your questions for current future gap, CFG, current future gap, that's what we talked about before, and the types of questions that you're asking with the process that you have in place. And open questions also, just to reiterate, mean that you're getting an open answer. It's not a closed off, short or one word answer. Again, probe is when you've got that information, you can go even deeper. And another example could be you're asking about when was the last time you looked at your financial forecasting? Open question. Or actually, that's probably a little bit of probe. That might be in the live scoping meeting or on the gap analysis. And then from there, it could be who's holding you to account or who's responsible for driving these forecast numbers. And then, of course, how are you tracking and actuals versus target, et cetera, et cetera. Now, closed questions. Closed questions, they return a short answer or a yes or no, a very direct one word or short answer. It's kind of like you're driving somebody to a cul-de-sac. There's only so far that they can go with it. And closed questions can be very powerful throughout a conversation if they're used wisely. And we're going to talk about how to use closed questions in a moment. But for now, I just want to remind you that closed questions are what you can use to get a client started with you. And, I think keep it as simple as possible. When you're at that point of the conversation where your client is, you're about to ask, make sure you ask for it for a start, but it could be something as simple as, wonderful, let's get you started. Or you could have an assumptive sale, which is, how about we book you in your first, maybe it's a meeting or a one-on-one, whatever your onboarding process is, for next Thursday, and we can take you through what the specific next steps are. I'll send through, maybe we can get the contract signed now, so that's out of the way and done. What do you think? Should we get started? So you're really looking at, and again, one of the things I'd love for you to do from here is have a think about what are your closed questions or your onboarding questions. So that's getting permission for the client to say, yes, I'm on board and I want to get started with you now. So closed questions are also very important throughout the conversation because they give you permission points throughout. And what I mean by that is, remember I said to you, if you haven't uncovered a gap, then don't go in and sell. You have to find a gap before you sell to them. And you could use closed questions or permission points throughout by saying something like, okay, Nikki, so what I'm really hearing is the biggest challenge for you in business at the moment is cash flow management. Am I right? Or am I on the right track? And then the client has to say yes or no. And if they say yes, you've actually got permission to continue the conversation. If they say no, that's totally okay, because wouldn't you rather know that at this point in the conversation that you actually are you're on the wrong track? So what you can then do is ask some more questions, and you might say, oh, I must have misunderstood something in what we said earlier. Can I just ask a couple of more questions so I'm on the right track? So you can definitely get clarity and clarification on where you're at, and it's better to get that throughout the conversation as opposed to waiting till the end. And I've got some more examples further around the permission points and the paraphrasing as well. So your current future gap and your funnel, these are two really important, really critical ways to help make sure you have a conversation with purpose, or your teams to have a conversation with purpose. You want to have a good balance of creating connection with the people that you're talking to, make them feel important and taken care of, whilst still having an outcome in mind. And again, depending on where you sit naturally in terms of the 4 behavioral styles, if you're more direct, you might need to soften it a little bit with some more questions. If you're not as direct, then you might need to actually have some questions in there that are a bit pointy, like, what would be the consequence if we don't get this sorted for you? And you'll know where your stretch is. So make sure you, and your team, so make sure you look at that and you can build on that as well. All right, so we're now at the point where we're going to talk about how not to interrogate your clients. It's kind of important. You're asking a lot of questions. You're digging deep. You're uncovering what the need, the desire, the problem is that you're helping to solve and fulfill. So you will need to ask a few questions. And again, what I love about the 7 steps to sales mastery is for you guys, for firms, accountants, and advisors, is that in a way that's taken care of because you've got the initial needs analysis, a few questions there, the gap analysis, so the survey out to uncover more, and then the live scoping meeting. And what that actually then means is that you're not sitting down and asking 50 million questions in the first meeting. So A, you get more information that's going to help you have a better quality conversation, but also your potential client is not going to feel ambushed or as though there's just too many questions and overwhelmed. You don't want them to feel overwhelmed. So that's the first thing you've already got in the process that you have. And that also helps you have action with conversation with purpose as well. The other key thing here is you want to keep it human. And so there's a couple of really good tips. You know, I mentioned already, people will buy from you when they know you, trust you, like you. And the other key thing to remember is to keep it human and keep that connection. You may have heard, it's a gentleman called Albert Mehrabian. He did a lot of research. So he was a professor and he did some research in terms of effective communication. And again, you may have heard of this. 7% of effective communication comes down to the words that you use. 38% comes down to your vocal liking. So I can see there's a typo here. So the 7% is the words that you use. 38%, so what vocal liking is, are things like your tone of voice, the timbre of your voice, so how it resonates, the pace, how quickly or how slowly you're talking, the pitch, how high-pitched, how low-pitched, the inflection at the end, is it command tonality or is it question tonality, which deflects against certainty. There's so much in the vocal liking, the vocal component, the sound of your voice. 38% of effective communication comes down to the sound of your voice, and 55%, so facial liking, but also body language. And this was specifically his definition, which has been used many times over in many seminars and trainings. But, you know, I think there's a lot of value in this, because if 55% of effective communication is your body language and your facial expressions, 38% is the tone of voice that you're using or the sound of your voice. And what we mean by liking is that people like it, therefore they resonate with it, therefore they know you, trust you, like you. And only 7% comes down to the words that you use or the information you're sharing. It shows us that it's kind of important to take a look at, and especially when you're asking those effective questions with your potential clients. Not just potential clients, your clients. And a big part of Albert's research was looking at the congruence between each component. So if your facial expression or your body language is saying something really different to what you're verbally saying and your tone of voice, then it's incongruent and it doesn't resonate and people will not trust you. So you also need to think about all of these key things, your voice and your body language. But the thing that I've found to make it really easy and simple for you to remember, because there's so much to think about and remember, is just be curious. Think about it. What do you do when you're curious about something? You ask questions. When you're curious, you lean in. When you're curious, you absolutely listen. The whole 2 ears, 1 mouth. Your body language is taken care of because you are present. You are there with them. The tone of voice is actually taken care of because you're genuinely curious about what they have to say or what their challenges are or their needs or their desires. So let's simplify it. You know, we're a big fan of finding ways to simplify things to give you the biggest impact and result that you can absolutely get with your clients. So be curious. And one way that you can do that is also question softeners. So again, I'm happy if you want to get a copy of this deck, happy to share that with you. So you don't have to scramble and write everything. But things like, tell me, I'm really curious to know challenges for you at the moment. And go in with a probe question. Can you see how much nicer it is, how much gentler it is? So again, some of you may naturally do this, and others, this might be a stretch for you. If you tend to be more direct, this might be a stretch so you can practice them. Excellent. So I can see we've got a few people wanting Beautiful. We'll definitely get this to you as well. So practice these question softeners. Both MC and I are huge fans of recording yourself, putting that out there, and then, of course, watching it and listening so you can see how you sound and what you do. And please, I'd love to hear how you go with this, because I really think bringing curiosity and including some of these softener words are just so effective to take care of all of those different, body language and tone of voice, etc. Okay, now I've already talked about paraphrasing and permission points a little bit, but I want to revisit this because the power of the paraphrase and the permission point is using it together. And I can see we've got a couple of questions coming through as well, so we'll definitely make sure we've got some time to go through that at the end in a few moments as well. Thank you so much. So paraphrasing is, of course, repeating back what they've said to make sure there's a clear understanding both ways. And I've got a couple of examples here that you can use and you can copy and you can add to and build on, etc. So things like, so what you're really saying is that the focus in the business has not really been where it needs to be. Is that right? Now, what I've done there is I've added the permission point, the closed question. Or what I'm hearing you say is you're just not sleeping at night because the financial situation that you're in, it's really overwhelming. Am I on the right track? And you can practice adding the two. Now, the distinction here is that if you don't ask the permission point, so what I'm hearing is that really this financial situation, it's affecting all areas of your life, even your sleep. So hear how that's a statement. It doesn't have the question at the end. And honestly, it is the little things that make a difference. By adding a question at the end, you're forcing the other person you're talking, I mean, you're not forcing to them, they're choosing to answer, but unless they're really rude, they're probably going to answer. And you're getting them to say yes or no. Now, the more yeses you get along the way, the more likely you are to get a yes at the end. And realistically, what you want to do, there'd be some psychology behind that, but let's just look at it from a common sense point of view. Think about if you get more yeses along the way, of course you're going to get a yes at the end because you're in tune with the client's problem, need, desire. So you're definitely on the right track there. So I'd love for you to practice these. Again, record yourself, listen to yourself. You're going to practice the question softeners. You're going to practice the paraphrasing with a permission point at the end. You're going to record yourself. And these are the things that will help you not interrogate your client. You're going to use the sales mastery steps, particularly, the INA, the gap analysis, and then the live scoping meeting, or it's the invitation call to a future focused advisory meeting, and then that FAM sitting down with the client as well. All right, we're going to do another quick poll here. I would love to know who is responsible for selling in your firm. And here we go. Okay, so who is responsible for selling? Is it the client service coordinators or the front of the house? Is it the accountants and advisors themselves? Is it the partners and the directors? Do you believe that the responsibility is everybody in the firm? Or is there somebody else that you feel is responsible for selling in your firm? Who is responsible? We've got the answers coming in thick and fast. I love it. All right, in the lead, everyone in the firm. Whoops, changing a little bit. Everyone, partners, directors. Okay, let's keep those answers coming in thick and fast, guys. I love it. Everyone in the firm is definitely in the lead. Followed by partners and directors. I think we're probably almost at that 80%. Those of you who are still thinking, jump on and answer. Is it the client service coordinator, the accountants and advisors, or the partners and directors, or of course everybody in the firm, or others? And you can let us know in the comments. Ah, Mark, it is a very, sorry, I had to have a sip of water. It's a very big cup. All right, so Kimberly, partners only, everybody. All right, wonderful. I'm going to close out this poll. So you got 3 seconds, 3, 2, 1. Any last minute answers? Actually, Brad, I don't know how to do that now, so if you could do that, that would be wonderful. Thank you very much. Okay, I promised you a tip on how to get your clients to sell themselves. And this is a goodie. Now, for some of you, well, what I've found, actually, I should say, when I share this, some people jump on it, they love it. For other people, it can feel a little bit unnatural at first. And when I say unnatural, it's just a different type of question. It's actually very, very, very simple. But what we tend to do is we tend to try and overthink it. So that's the first thing I want you to remember is don't overthink how simple this is going to be. All right. Now, it is a type of question, and I'm going to share 2 questions with you that I want you to write down, record yourself, practice, share with your teams, and start practicing with clients, because these 2 questions can absolutely make the difference in your clients selling themselves or you trying to desperately get the sale across the line. Now, they're called reverse qualifiers, and what they do is they get the client qualifying themselves to you. And they're very powerful because we as human beings, there's a thing called the law of consistency, and if you're curious to know more about that, there's a wonderful book called Influence by Robert Cialdini, or you could Google it. He's got a great website. And he talks about the law of consistency. And the law of consistency is if I say something to be true, then I will want to prove it to be true. I will want to find evidence for it to be true. And I'm not likely to go back and then contradict what I've said. So if your client tells you why you're the right firm, they're not likely to go back at any point and say, actually, no, you're not the right fit. Or if your client says why now is the right time to get started and moving with the assistance that you can provide, they're not likely to turn around and say, no, now's not the right time. And, you know, because again, you might think you know, and you might know what the reasons are, but the power here is getting your client to tell you. So who wants to know what these questions are? I can see you sitting on the edge of your seats. So the first question is geared around why now? Now, you need to put some more words in there to soften it a little bit, but really not that much. And let me give you an example. Also, the important part here is placement and where you place the question. So if you're in a live scoping meeting and you've uncovered the need, so the first thing with why now is you have to have uncovered the need, and the client is seeing the value in how you can help them. The question that you want to ask is, so Michael, why is now the right time for us to get started on this for you? So if you listen to the recording again, go back and listen, because what's the 2 most important words that are in there is why and now. And I put a couple of words in there to buffer it out a little bit. But depending on the client, you might be able to say, so why is now the right time? And can you hear the difference in my tone of voice? So I'd love to know, why is now the right time to get started? I used a question softener to soften the question. Another way you could ask this, it's a little bit more lengthy, is, look, you know, you could have received some help with this 6 months ago. You really could get started in the next 6 months, but why is now the right time to do this? So that's another way that you can do it, where you're giving some contrast. And some of you might be thinking, but I don't want them to say that it's not the right time. But if they don't feel that it's the right time, you want them to tell you that. So listen to the recording, practice. I'd love to hear how you go, give me some feedback. And you want to ask the why now question when you've uncovered the need and you're in the live scoping meeting. The power is, think about the kind of answers they're going to give you. They're going to answer things like, because I'm so stressed out, I can't live the way that I'm living at the moment. Or if I don't, I'm losing money and it could cost the business, we could close the doors. See how you're getting the client to tell you the compelling reasons as opposed to you telling them, and it's so much more powerful. The reverse qualifier that I want to share with you is why us? Now, this one is a great question to ask in the initial needs analysis point. And the question would be, so I'd love to know, why embrace accountants? Again, the key there is why and your firm name. Excellent. So the why us is in that initial INA component, because you can, or what prompted, which I just want to give distinction, what prompted you to call us is a very different question, because it's saying I need financial help, or I need somebody to help with taxes or business, whatever it might be. Then you could say, and why Embrace Accountants? What was it about Embrace Accountants that got you to pick up the phone and call us? So again, a couple of different ways that you can use that. And I'm just going to leave that there for you to marinate on, to have a think about and practice. And if you want to, we can build on this. Perhaps we can look at another webinar in the future. But I think you've got loads and loads and loads of key tools and techniques there that you can use. And the final thing I want to share as a little tip is, how do you think you keep control of the conversation? You know, I hear a lot of times one of the biggest challenges is that the client or the potential client takes over. And that's why the process, the sales process, is so important. The other rule of thumb I want you to keep in mind, and write this down, is the 30-70 rule. What that means is that you're talking 30% of the time and your potential client is talking 70% of the time. It's the person that's speaking the least that has control of the conversation. Reflect if there's ever been a time where you've gone, whoa, what happened? Sometimes we start talking too much. Could be because we're nervous, or we don't know what to say, or we're excited and passionate about how you can help someone. So always bring it back to 30-70 rule. Was I talking 30% of the time? And of course, the only way that you can only talk 30% of the time is if you're asking effective questions. For those of you who are watching this live or recorded, remember, effective questioning is the backbone of any effective sales conversation. So go back and listen to these key areas and practice them, apply them. There's heaps of little nuggets and structures and ways for you to think about how you're actually having these conversations with your clients. Now, I would love to open up to you for some questions. We've got about 7 minutes left, I think, and I can see there's some questions here. So I'd love to throw the money to you. The money to you. I'd love to throw the money to you now. The mic over to you. Hello, MC.
Yeah, start throwing the money. That's a new technique on webinars. Now, what we might do, Nikki, is if we stop showing the slides, people will just have a better view of us as we do Q&A. Now, I've flagged a few things there, Nikki. Some were obvious questions. Others were comments that people made that I'd like to have you and I comment on. We'll start with a simple question. And as I raised this one that Matt raised, I'll get everyone to type into chat what they believe. Matt Bell has asked, what is the ideal length for a live scoping meeting? Your view on that, Nikki?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think, look, you've done the groundwork. So I would probably say if you can do the live scoping meeting in half an hour, that would be ideal. I don't know what your thoughts are, MC, but I think what can happen is it's almost like if you allocate 30 minutes but allow a little buffer as well, what can happen is you're in the meeting for an hour, and sometimes a shorter meeting means that there's more action with purpose or conversation with purpose. You've also got to remember that when you're in the live scoping meeting, you've already done an initial needs analysis and you've got the gap analysis. So you don't have to start from the beginning. And a typical first meeting might take an hour, but because you've got that pre-work, you can kind of start from scratch. You're not starting from scratch. So I'd say 30, maybe to 45 minutes, but you want to try and keep it within that time frame. MC, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, my view is similar. I think if you make it long and you say to someone it's going to be an hour, that might seem daunting to them, perhaps. Mm-hmm. But yeah, look, I think definitely allow it to go for up to an hour, because if you're having a really good conversation about the gaps, that alone could go for half an hour if it was a great conversation. And then the scoping itself is then on top of that. But, you know, yeah, 30 to 45. But yeah, at the end of the day, use your judgment and see how it goes in terms of where the conversation's flowing. But if you go way over an hour, it's not great positioning anyway for you as an advisor, is it? If you spend 2 hours with someone.
And I think the other thing that sometimes people don't remember, because it's, you know, if it's effective, that's the most important thing, isn't it? So is it an effective conversation, and is it adding value to them and are you getting what you need? Because sometimes, now this is actually a little bit off, sort of related but off topic, but if you've scheduled, say, an hour meeting with somebody, it's an advisory meeting, whatever it might be, sometimes there's this feeling of, oh, I can go over, but it's actually good for your time management, but it's really good for your client to see you effectively managing your time as well, to keep it at that 45 minutes scheduled or an hour scheduled or whatever it might be. So you're also teaching and training, if you like, the standards on that meeting. But if you, as you say, are having a really effective quality conversation, spend time with them. Yeah, absolutely. And you can sort of gauge, is it worthwhile for both of you?
One quick tip from my mentor, Paul Dunn. He suggests never set meetings that are 30 minutes or an hour. If it is 30, set it for 25, or if it's an hour, set it for 50. And there's actually a setting, if you're a Google calendar user, I'm not sure if Outlook has the same, where you can schedule, I think the feature's called Smart Meetings, and it will always take the 5 minutes off the 30 to make it 25 and the 10 minutes off the 50. Anyway, quick aside on that. Yeah, sorry, Nikki, what do you think of that idea?
Oh, yeah, I love it. I absolutely encourage that. And, it also, I think like isn't there something about also even like the number 7, so 2:47? I've got a client that is doing afternoon huddles at 2:47 and people are on time. So yeah,
2:47 means 2:47, doesn't it? I think with the prospect that might be too specific. They might think, oh my goodness, this accountant's really anal. So maybe
by the second and the minute, absolutely.
Now, some related sort of comments that I'd love to build on, because I've got some really great examples to share of this, is Mark made the observation that if 38% is voice, not vice, and as he corrected, and 55% facial body language, then the power of face-to-face meetings, webinars, etc., so like Zooms, where people can see each other, must be far more effective than email, letter, social media, etc., because the latter are just words. Absolutely. One tool that a lot of progressive advisors are using these days is Loom. That's LOOM for Mary. And the website's USE Loom. I'll actually, Brad, if you could paste in a link to everyone there. And I was talking to a member the other day, and he loves it because after the conversation that he has with a prospect at the start, he sends them a Loom straight away, talks straight into his webcam, and just talks for about a minute or two, reflects back to them what the conversation sort of main points were and what the next step is. And with Loom, when you paste it into an email, particularly in Gmail, I'm not quite sure with Outlook, it expands into the graphic that makes it look like a video player. So that alone is quite impressive for someone to receive. They click on it, it plays, and it has an incredible effect. Now, he said to me that someone else in his firm was laboring over these really long emails, and they saw that, they were taking 30 minutes and longer to type an email after a conversation in a process. And, this member is creating Looms in 5 minutes.
So good. So good.
Yeah. So definitely, guys, use the visual. We know a lot of accountants and advisors around the world now who do their sales process over Zoom. Sure, there are other tools as well, like GoTo. Zoom's our tool of choice on that front. It's got very good quality video. So, Matt, we answered. Mark, just wanted to build on your point. Absolutely. And do these visual emails. Leanne agreed on that, agreed to videoing yourself and playing back. Oh, okay. Yeah, the point about when you see yourself.
Yes.
On video. It's true.
Oh, yeah, the Leanne, isn't that true? Yeah, and the filler words that we use, it's a little bit daunting at first, but I talk a lot about high performance and high performance people, high performance business people, regardless of what you're doing, they will do the things that majority of the people won't. And this is a great example of what high performers do. So if you want to be the best at what you do, if you want to have the best conversations, practice, record, get over. It's kind of like get out of our own way, put our own ego aside. Yeah, it sucks. Everyone hates hearing their voice and seeing them at first, but just do it and you will definitely reap the rewards. So good.
And just before we go to the last question, which is a very interesting one on a few different levels, I'll just let everyone see where they can click a button on the right-hand side of the screen now. If you click the button that says let me know here, you can let Nikki know that you want to have a chat with her, and you can choose when, whether it's next week, next month, or down the track. It's up to you. So back to the question. I just said one other tip on arms is There's a great little app. They haven't really kept it up to date, but there's an app that you can get on iPhone. I know there's probably one on Android called an counter. And it's got 3 little circles, and you can actually change the words on the circles to be whatever your little ticks or things are. So the common ones we know are, kind of, like, and you know. They're the main ones depending on your culture. So if you video yourself and play it back, you can tap. In speaker training, people can do it for you live, and you can debrief. And you'll get to a point where you can speak for minutes without umming, ahhing, liking, kinda, etc.
Yeah.
So everyone, bring your counters to masterclass in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, do that, definitely.
See how it goes. Now, SM, all the way from Canada, asks, so this is our last question, everyone. What do you do when you send a quick questionnaire before the meeting and the client cancels the meeting? Thank your lucky stars, as the client was obviously not meant for you, or try to follow up and see why they cancelled. I've got a view on this, but over to you, Nikki, sales guru, on that one.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one because, you know, you definitely want to work, again, with the right types of clients. So you need to think about the profile of your ideal client and who you can add best value to, and what level of accountability and interaction you want from them. I would also have a look at what part of the sales process are they at. So, for example, if they've cancelled and they haven't even filled out any of the gap analysis questions, they probably don't have a lot of buy-in, and maybe they're not the right type of client because they haven't invested that time. If they've gone through the process of filling out the gap analysis, I would say it's worthwhile reaching out to them, giving them a phone call. You can have a look at the information that they've completed. So you've got also a better understanding, is it an ideal type client, or actually is it not? So you can then, you know how much time to invest. I still would limit how much interaction you have, i.e., follow up with them if you feel like, well, this is a good client and genuinely I want to know what stopped them from proceeding further. Could be good feedback for you. Maybe they didn't like the process, or there's a tweak that you can do. But if they haven't filled the gap analysis, or if you look at the gap analysis and think, yeah, this is actually outside of scope for us, then minimize the time that you spend or choose not to follow up with them. Would be what I say. MC, over to you.
Well, I concur with all of that. I would follow up if they've done the gap analysis, but there's a way to preempt the issue in the first place, because sometimes in life things happen and people can have very, very good reasons to cancel. Depending on how they cancel too, if they just emailed and cancel without giving any reason, that would be somewhat odd. But best practice is 2 days prior to an appointment, confirm it with them. Have someone call them. Robert Cialdini, and by the way, I'll put a link through to everyone right now to when you mentioned Robert Cialdini. We mentioned this book a lot. It's gold. I'll just put a link for everyone. I just did a quick Google before off to that. Everyone should read that book. You're at a disadvantage if you don't. But on the cancellation of things, he gives an example in there, Cialdini, of a New York restaurant where they were getting a lot of no-shows, and no-shows cost restaurants money. In fact, no-shows cost you money because there's the opportunity cost of having prepared for it, then it doesn't happen. And with commitment and consistency principle in Cialdini's book, people want to be consistent with past actions and what they say. It's just inherent in most of our DNA, and it's one of the fabrics, keeping society's fabrics together. So they just instituted calling 2 days prior and asking the question, hi, Mr. Smith, just confirming you're right for Friday night at 7:30. You will be there, won't you? Or some question where they then stop talking, get the person to say yes, and eliminated the problem. But maintain your posture in that if someone cancels and doesn't tell you why, clearly you don't want to hound them because they're not respecting your time.
Yeah, absolutely. And it could be just a sign of things to come. And of course, the caveat being that life does happen and sometimes there's genuine things that come up. But I couldn't agree more. Even the approach of how they've cancelled, take that into account as well. So
before we 100% wrap, we've gone 5 minutes over. I just want to thank a few people for some shares here in chat. Because when you're presenting, Nikki, obviously you're focused on the content. You can't look at all of these. I'm a male, so multitasking is just a challenge, full stop anyway, for me. So Donna, Darren mentioned that Donna McGeorge has a great book, 25-minute meetings. So that's a cool share.
I'm going to take note of that.
Thank you for that. And thanks to Brad, our marketing machine mechanic, posted in a link to use Loom. I may be umming and ahhing more than usual. I've had 3 hours sleep. Let's not go into why.
Yeah, I heard
it was a conference. Okay.
Kerry
has said
very well.
Kerry has said other fillers are the word so. Emily has shared that her old boss always said at the end of the day. Yeah, these phrases that people can tend to repeat, politicians in Australia often say, moving forward, it always was a classic of a former Prime Minister. Yep. So non-value adding repetitions, let's all eliminate them. So let's wrap now. I'd like to thank you, Nicky, for setting aside time to prepare the content and the AV checks for today and sharing your expertise. And everyone should really understand that whilst questioning techniques, today's topic is a crucial topic. It's one part of sales process.
Yeah.
So I highly recommend to anyone who does not have or hasn't done sales training in recent months, your soft skills, that is a misnomer. They're so crucial. The word soft does not do them justice. Soft skills are just as important as your technical skills. And all progressive firms that I know treat soft skills equally as important because it's all about the communication of value. So thanks everyone for joining us today. And without too much warning, I'll throw to you, Nicky, to have the closing words of wisdom.
Fantastic. So again, thank you also to everybody for joining. And MC, it's always an absolute pleasure to brag behind the scenes. I think the key thing here is if you can walk away with anything today is look at what is the current sales process that you have and how are you incorporating your effective questioning techniques. Now, some of you may or may not know, and I did mention earlier that MC and I have been collaborating for some time now actually on bringing together best practice sales techniques with your specific industry, market, challenges, requirements, types of clients, etc. So we have created a 7 steps to sales mastery matrix, and there's a whole bunch of different components in there and looking at how can we help support your teams really get the skills that they need regardless of what role they're in, how we can help support the leaders within the business, the partners, the directors, and also the advisors as well. So there's a 3-channel approach, but I think the key thing is really self-reflect and look at what are the gaps and utilize the resources. Reach out to myself, reach out to MC. You've got so much support here. We are absolutely here to help, and it's one thing at a time. Incremental increases will get you where you need to go.
And Nicky, as you were speaking, I lied. I said you were going to have the last word, but this question from James Lynn is too good for us to not address.
Okay, I'll forgive you.
What resources would you recommend to someone just getting started into sales? I've just got a couple of tips on that, but what do you suggest, Nicky, on that front, someone who's just getting into the sales?
Yeah, so first thing, I love that you're asking that question. And one of the key things you can do is reach out to people who are great at what you want to do. So it's modeling excellence. So if you're just starting in sales, look at who you can model excellence from. And even, like I said just earlier, reaching out to people like myself and MC, or even people that you really admire. So how are you staying inspired and motivated? As well as how are you learning the skills? So reading, listening, absorbing anything and everything that you can. But again, if you reach out to the people who have done it before, there's a great saying, and I think it's a Tony Robbins saying, or it might be even a Jim Rohn, which is stand on the shoulders of the giants that went before. It's something along those lines. So look at who's done it. Look at who's done it well. How did they get there? And just be committed to learning and practicing. That's what I would say.
And I promise everyone this closing comment now. Here are my tips for you. If you are not a Paradox member, go to Nicky's website, evergreencoaching.com.au, and anyone who blogs gives away a lot of value, right? So absorb the articles on Nicky's blog. Nicky, connect to Nicky in social media. Nicky does Facebook Lives, as many of us now do. So just connect to the free information that's already available from Nicky. Read the information on our blog. Like the word subscribe on our YouTube channel. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and also Evergreen's YouTube channel. There's a lot of videos up there. Past recordings of webinars where, for example, I interviewed and shared a case study of how we helped Ben Walker from Inspire CA in Brisbane go from being a proposal chaser into a proposal closer, converter, that's a really valuable interview there. Now, if you are already a Paradox member, on the flip side, ask. Help us help you, one of my favorite lines from the Jerry Maguire movie. And the way you do that is go into the Facebook group, which is the Modern Marketing Implementer Facebook group, which is only available to members, and ask, because some really valuable threads then evolve from that, and often we'll then record screencasts or videos to do it. And that then helps us evolve our content, which is why we can give you content that's not just off the shelf somewhere. We're tailoring it to what your issues are out there in the trenches in public practice. And that's why we've got killer masterclass content. Next year, Nicky and I will again be doing a masterclass just on selling, just on sales process in the first half of next year. So stay tuned for those 2-day workshops. And our next masterclass in 2 weeks is on the content side of things. So guys, gone over time. Apologies for that. And thanks again, Nicky. Have a fabulous rest of your Friday. If you're on the left of the date line, if you're on the right of the date line where I am, enjoy the rest of your Thursday evening. Bye for now.
Thanks very much. Thanks MC.
Nicky.
Thanks, everybody. See you later.
Bye, guys.